Observing me from an early age, however, no one could deny that my dad's entrepreneurial DNA ran strong through me. The only thing I loved more than running a business and making money was the New York Jets. My neighbor always said that no season was safe. In the summer, I would wash her car. In the fall, I'd rake her leaves, and I'd shovel her snow through winter. There was one spring when I cut the flowers in her yard, then rang her doorbell and sold the flowers back to her. I'm still kind of proud of that initiative. The profit margin was amazing. I sat on the inventory for 2 seconds. It still might be the best business I ever built. By the time I was 8 years old, I had 7 lemonade stands and was raking in crazy amounts of cash for someone who's still scared to ride a bike. My fear was problematic, considering that my franchises were located all around the neighborhood. Everyone could hear me coming from a mile away as I roared around on my big wheels to pick up my money. Hey 80s kids, you remember the big wheels, right? Those were the greatest. I miss mine. I'm gonna have to buy one at a garage sale. My real business education began when I caught baseball card fever. My mom had taken me to a flea market where I bought some packs of baseball cards as well as a copy of Beckett Baseball Card Price Guide. It revealed that there was actual value to these cards I'd bought. I can still remember that feeling as I realized that my whole world has changed. It was the same feeling I'd get later when I saw the market potential for wine, when I saw the internet for the first time, when I watched my first video blog. It was like game over. Goodbye lemonade stands. Hello baseball cards. We moved to Hunterdon County, New Jersey when I was in 8th grade. Baseball cards were on like Donkey Kong in my new school, and within weeks, I was raking in the dough. One day, the local mall announced they were hosting a baseball card show, and there was no way I was going to miss it. I was already a $100 player thanks to selling cards to my 8th grade classmates, so I mustered up the courage and asked my dad for the biggest number I could ever think of, $1,000. Unbelievably, though in hindsight, that's just who my dad is, he gave it to me. The money was burning a hole in my pocket, so I immediately went to Costco, it was called Price Club back then, and spent it on a ton of boxes of cards. I knew they weren't a good year, but I was impatient. This was the last time that I would ever be impatient when it came to business. Sure enough, when I opened them up and looked up the values, I found out they were only worth about $200. Oh man, was I in trouble. 80% of my value gone, out the window. My mom drove my 2 partners, Jason Riker and John Churchak, and me to the mall so we could buy a table at the show. We had agreed ahead of time that we wouldn't buy a table if it cost more than $20. We asked for the promoter when we got to the mall, and this 400-pound Italian dude comes out. I'm serious, this guy came out of Central Casting. It was epic. His t-shirt didn't even cover his whole belly. I said, I remember this clearly. I said, "Hey mister, how much for the show?" He replied, $150. I handed over the money and shook the guy's hand and walked away, ignoring my friends' gaping mouths. My brain was telling me that this was a terrible idea, but my gut said, go for it, and I've always listened to my gut. By the time I got home and told my dad and mom what I had done, I almost was in tears. But true to form, they didn't throttle me, even though I'm sure they wanted to. Instead, my dad said he'd hoped that losing the money would become worth the experience. My dad's a wise man. I went to my room determined to show him that I wasn't in it just for the experience. The fire was burning, and there was no way I was going to lose. I wanted to show it and prove it to my dad. The next day we set up our table, and the first thing I did was market research. I walked around the show checking out what everyone else was selling. I then adjusted, repricing every card we had available for less than anyone else was selling it. We crushed it and made straight cash. From then on, I did every show I could. My mom and fellow card dealer and best friend Brandon Warnicki's mom would drive us in the snow, rain, to Bridgewater, Hillsborough, Edison, Raritan, anywhere there was a show, and every time I'd dominate. I had just learned one of my first lessons in business. Scarcity breeds desire. My strategy was simple. I'd buy sets that weren't mentioned in Beckett's and promote them to create a market. You're thinking, geez, Gary, what a scam artist you were. Not at all. I was an optimist. A pessimist would have seen these cards as unlisted and assumed they were worthless. I, on the other hand, quite innocently decided that if these cards weren't in the guide, they had to be valuable. I paid back my dad his $1,000 in about 3 to 4 months. I continued to earn this kind of money every weekend I could. Then I turned 15 and got dragged out of the mall and into the liquor store. To go from self-made baseball card king of Hunterdon County, rolling in dough, to grunt bagging ice for $2 an hour was a hard fall. It wasn't until I turned 16 that I was even allowed up on the floor and became a cashier. Not too exciting, but it beat hours of shoveling ice and dusting shelves. I couldn't drink anything we sold. My parents were pretty strict about that, which is kind of shocking. You know, European family, owning a liquor store. You would have thought they could have slipped me a little something, but I respect it. But I was good at regurgitating data. So when business was slow, I flipped through trade magazines to pass the time and then use what I've learned to help customers. One of those magazines was Wine Spectator. Now, the store was called Shoppers Discount Liquors for a reason. Most of our business came from selling the hard stuff. Beer, too, was a big seller. The beer cooler, in fact, pretty much took up 33% of the entire store. But I learned two things from my time behind the cash register. First, thanks to Wine Spectator, I learned that there was a whole culture cachet to drinking wine, and that people collected it in the same way I collected baseball cards, or Star Wars toys, or comic books. That was interesting to me. I also noticed a pattern. People would come in and buy their Absolute or their Johnny Walker, and I knew that I or anyone in the staff could talk until we were blue in the face about another brand, and they would still walk out with their Absolute or Johnny Walker. Those brands were just too established. The wine buyer, though, would often walk in looking a little lost, spend 10 minutes tentatively peering at labels as though they were hoping for a bottle to jump out and spare them from making a decision. I knew from my expertise with baseball cards that people want to be told what's good and valuable, that they enjoy feeling like they've been turned on to something not everyone can appreciate. Again, time to pull off on the side of the road and really swallow this piece of information. Storytelling is by far the most underrated skill when it comes to business. The wine buyers, unlike the liquor customers, were open to any suggestions I had, and I realized that they represented opportunity. Spotting that social trend was enough to turn what started out as a casual interest in wine into an obsession. I started out at Shoppers Discount Liquors, hating every second of my time there, but now I was determined to turn the place into the #1 wine shop in America, changing the wine world. No one had any illusions that I was a great scholar as I started my senior year of high school. So it made sense to me that my plan should be to eke out the grades, graduate, and start working full-time at the liquor store. Sometime in February. Yes, February. Sorry, Mom. I know everybody's going to be like, February? I have to call you out a little bit here, but you know it's true. My mother asked me what college was I planning to attend. Oh, by the way, February of senior year. Yeah, just wanted to zing her one more time. College? You know, college was the furthest thing from my mind at that point. I really thought that I was going to be able to sneak through. Since my parents hadn't talked about college, I didn't send any, applications. So, college? What are you talking about, Mom? As luck would have it, a postcard from Mount Ida College in Newton, Mass. showed up in the mail a few days after this conversation. I filled it out, and Mount Ida became my home in the fall. By then, though, my life was the store, and I'd come home almost every weekend to work there. In September of '95, I was hanging out in a friend's dorm room when he turned on his computer and introduced me to this thing called the internet. I let my friends bumble around in chat rooms trying to hook up with girls for a little while, and then I kicked them off and spent the next 9 hours hunting down baseball card trading forums and figuring out how I was going to use this thing to grow the store. There was no doubt in my mind this was going to be the future of business. It would take me another year to get the courage to approach my dad about selling wine online. What can I say? My dad's kind of a scary dude. And at first he kind of resisted, but he believed in me at that point. And as soon as he relented, I was off to the races. WineLibrary.com was launched in June of 1997. The store itself wouldn't have changed to Wine Library full-time until 1999. We were kind of limbo there for 2 years as I tried to convince my dad it was a good move. The store brought in about $3 million a year in '94. I came on board full-time after graduating in '98 and grew the business from about $4 million to $10 million in a year, with 0% of that being in online sales. By 2001, we were doing about $20 million. Not bad at all. Life was good and business was booming. Most guys my age would have thought they've made it. But then, on my 30th birthday, November 14th, 2005, I was driving along the New Jersey Turnpike on my way to work, thinking about my day, and I realized that as perfect as life seemed, I wasn't entirely happy. Not 100% anymore. I knew deep down in my soul that there was no way I was ever going to buy the jets if I stayed in the retail path. See, the problem is liquor laws suck. Some of you driving in Maryland and Boston right now, I can't ship you wine. So I basically said to myself, it was time to go big. We had a computer department at Wine Library by now, and I had seen Eric Kastner and John Casamatis spending their lunch breaks spitting food all over themselves and laughing at these things called video blogs. The two big ones at the time were Rocket Boom and The Show with Say Frank. I had been trying to figure out how to leverage this new medium to show people that there was more to drink out there than Yellowtail. I'd also noticed that sites like MySpace and Flickr and YouTube were becoming popular. Sites that had nothing to do with commerce and everything to do with being social and sharing stories and meeting people. And that was something I was good at. It was there, on the New Jersey Turnpike, that I had my aha moment. I wasn't going to use video blogs to sell wine. I was going to use video blogs to build a whole new world for wine, and for myself. I waited to get the store through the holidays, and then I launched Wine Library TV in February of 2006, 3 months later.